Hello, everybody. Welcome to the second Frenemies chat. I am joined by Read by Kyle, as I was last time, and we have a guest today, and it is Jake, Jake Bishop from his channel. Do you want to shout out your channel, Jake, so people?
Yeah, I have a channel where I like talk about books. Sometimes I do lists or tier lists or reviews. Very, very original stuff. Yeah,
Sometimes they go viral.
one of them, but it's like the worst video, so don't watch
Is
that
it?
one.
Which one went viral?
It's my. It's a Song of Ice and Fire related video. It's a tier list of like all the monarchs.
Okay.
It's a better
I mean,
video than he thinks it is.
I'm sure
it's
it is.
fine.
It sounds interesting.
It's fine. It has more views than the rest of my videos combined twice. So
I mean, that's basically my Wheel of Time videos. They're like up here and everything else is down here. And I'm like, it is what it is.
whatever. It's not bad.
Yeah, I mean, it's fine. Hey, Rogue. So Kyle's and mine's last conversation, I will just give a little recap here, was prompted because I was chatting with Theo and I said that I thought Battle of the Bastards was likely my favorite episode of Game of Thrones. Kyle knows this from my conversation with him last time. I was a massive fan of the show, like to the nth degree. It was pretty much exclusively what my husband and I talked about for the first 10 years that we were together. So it's like a big thing in our household. That doesn't mean, though, that I don't really like The Winds of Winter. I still really like The Winds of Winter, but Battle of the Bastards is still probably my preferred episode. So when Kyle and I got into this conversation, Kyle realized that he was wrong, and it was actually a really great episode, and we were all friends by the end of it.
I don't remember that.
We had a very friendly debate as to pros and cons of this episode, Battle of the Bastards episode. I will fully acknowledge that there are plot holes and issues within that episode. Doesn't negate the fact that I still love it. I love it, love it, love it so much. So when we were talking about it last time, though, I had asked Kyle, what's an episode that you would rank really highly, basically to get a gauge of what he thinks is top quality, top tier episodes versus low quality episodes.
Did you pick this one, Kyle?
No, I did not.
No. He listed this as a really good episode, but the favorite episode he said was Kiss by Fire in season 3. So
is that the like random episode in the middle of season 3 that's way better than it has any right to be? Like
yes.
The one where like Jamie talks to Bran and stuff. Yeah, that episode's way better than both of these for sure.
Yes, it's not even close. Yeah, absolutely.
It's entirely possible. So I will also admit that I have not been able to go back and rewatch a lot of this show because of the fact that I am skewed of how bad the ending is. So for me, I can watch individual episodes, but going back and watching the whole thing for me is probably unlikely because I loathe the ending so much. And in my mind, the show ends with Winds of Winter. That's the final episode of the whole series. And it's a great ending and they all live happily ever after. But would you guys like to give any background contextual opinions on your Game of Thrones preferred episodes and things like that?
Sure.
Jake, we don't know about yours.
Yes. So for the audience,
Yes.
I really like the Game of Thrones TV show. The first 4 seasons are probably 4 of my favorite seasons of television.
Fair.
I don't hate these last 2 episodes of season 6 are the 2 like in the middle of like post season 4 that a lot of people really like.
Yep.
I do not hate The Winds of Winter. I would probably consider it roughly a top 50 episode of Game of Thrones.
Okay.
If you include House of the Dragon, like I think every episode of House of the Dragon, every episode of season 1, every episode of season 2, every episode of season 3, and every episode of season 4 is better.
Incorrect, but that's fine.
And if I watch all of season 5, I might pick 1 or 2 from season 5 as well. I don't know. But yeah, so I think season 7 is much worse, and then season 8 is really bad.
Yes.
So I'd give both of these episodes like a 6 out of 10. I'd be like,
wow, that's low. That's low.
One time, just for like lore sake, one time Jake and I had like I want to say 3-hour discussion on Discord.
That was your most annoying argument because you just were like appealing to authority and being like, yeah, see, these people say it's such a great episode of television. I'm like, okay.
No, that's not what I was saying. But regardless, what I was saying is that it's commonly said as like one of the better episodes of Game of Thrones. So it's just like surprising that you would call it that that much worse, and then you were just like, no, it's terrible, and you went and rewatched it, or you like watched a video about how it was bad.
No, I just Googled the synopsis and then I remember
Yeah.
the scenes and I was like, see,
Right,
this
yeah.
is stupid and this is stupid. So I will put out a brand. I will give it some props really quickly. The score I rewatched recently is unbelievably good.
Yeah,
Like
So
magnificent.
this is for Winds of Winter now, or
yes,
about okay.
Winds of Winter. Like
The first song is called "Light of the Seven," and it's arguably one of the best pieces ever written for
oh yeah,
like
and it
any
fits
scene.
the scene.
It's so good.
Like it's unbelievable. 10 out of 10.
Yes.
The cinematography for the entire episode, like everything is beautiful and gorgeous. It's shot incredibly. It's paced very well. There's some scenes that I take issue with because I don't think they actually contribute anything when you think about it. But for some cause problems, but whatever. Most of the acting is stellar. Like Lena Headey's acting, I think, is
so
incredible for the entire episode. That my issue was
Does
none
she
of those
even
things.
have a line in this episode? Oh no,
Yes.
she does. Never mind. Okay, yeah,
She
I remember the scene,
She does in the scene where I'm pretty sure they like actually were waterboarding that poor woman.
Yeah,
they
playing
were.
Deceptia,
Yes.
Which
Hannah
has got to be a
Waddingham.
point against it.
Hannah
By the way,
Waddingham. Yeah.
You know what? I was rewatching it this morning, and I was watching that scene. I was like, I think this
Ted
makes a
Lasso.
point down because I'm like, oh, this like ruined poor Hannah's day. But anyway,
So then I have a lot of issues with the episode that could be split into nitpicks where I have like they just start adding up because name any scene and I probably can point out like 3 things where just like the attention to detail doesn't make sense. And then my much bigger issue is that I just think the plotting like is a bit ridiculous. I think D&D had a bunch of scenes that they wanted to have that like these will either be cool or cinematic or shocking.
Yeah.
And they just made them happen, whether it made sense for them to happen or not, whether it made sense for character motivations, whether it made sense, like if it was a plan that made any sense that anyone conceive. They're just like, no, I want to have Lancel crawling towards the candles right as they blow up. Yeah. So we're going to have a child lure him down. Who knows why? He was going to go up and die anyways. We're going to give him a chance to ruin the plan. And I think almost all the cool scenes, that's how they came about. They didn't come about because that's how the characters were acting and that's the logical conclusion, except for Tommen jumping out the window, which was a brilliant scene.
Yeah.
But every other scene, I think they just they forcibly made happen, which is like the opposite of how George writes things, where like he's bottom up and has the characters act. So yeah, that's my preface for The Winds of Winter.
Okay. So with all that, all right, let's kind of jump in here a little bit. I like to go chronologically just because that way I can keep track of my thoughts and we can kind of go in order of sequence of events from the episode. But okay, the opening of this episode, the first 7 to 10 minutes of this episode, of course, is the whole scene that's been leading up to Cersei's trial, because season 6 deals with the plot line of the High Sparrow, which drove me insane watching it the first time because I love Jonathan Pryce so much, hate his character so much. So this whole thing coming to an end, I was like, we're finally going to be rid of this character. Great. Overall opinions on the opening sequence of this episode. What are your generalized thoughts, Kyle?
10 out of 10. I love it. And the reason I love it, it's to respond to all the things Jake's saying. He's absolutely right.
Yeah.
But TV is a different medium than book reading. And this is a magnificent, plotted and structured and shown portion of television, especially within context of what actually happens in the scene and what's been building up to it. And like, just the sheer amount of characters that get killed right here. Like, I know that's not like, that is just shock factor, but like it is, everything about it is executed very well, except like, I agree that like, yeah, why is Lancel down there? I don't know, but you know what? I literally don't care. Like, I have it is more dramatic that way. And, and to a point, you have to have the rule of cool and like, in terms of just visualizing. And so like, it's better if you like, so think of the scene without that happening. The scene without that happening would have to be that they're all up there being like, Cersei's not here. And then Qyburn just stabs Pycelle and then everything explodes.
Well, Qyburn also doesn't need to stab Pycelle. I'm pretty sure he was going for the trial.
Absolutely not. That was literally just because there was a scene in the book that was like that, which is actually one of my new criticisms of this episode, but we'll get there. Okay. But so Qyburn stabs Pycelle. I don't know why. Nobody knows why.
And the kids do.
Yeah, they're
Whatever.
just puppets of a kid or
Sure.
puppets of Qyburn. And then everything will just explode. So you have to have the narrative tension of like somebody seeing it and witnessing what's going on. They could have done that with Pycelle. Like it could have been Pycelle that just saw maybe like Qyburn set it up or like a kid set it up or something like that. And then because he's old and frail, that would actually be, I think that would be better if he's just too old and frail and he can't get there in time. And then Lancel could have just been up. And then you have the practical consideration that I don't think they considered at all, but I considered, which is that it's fundamentally impossible to tell Lancel and Loris apart with their dumbass haircuts. So they had to have them, like, they couldn't both be in the same scene when Loris is doing his dramatic "I am a gay man" speech that I hate.
I haven't. So I took notes when I was watching this, and I have notes. It starts like this scene is mostly really good. I do have the shock of the crowd when Loris says, "I have lain with other men" is kind of funny because like this was public knowledge. Everyone's like, "Oh, he's lain with other men." Yeah. I'm 100%. Shocked.
Like they have no idea that the Knight of Roses or Knight of Flowers or whatever has possibly been with men. Like and was very, very close with Renly for a number of years, but we're all shocked.
So Kyle, I get what you're saying that this is a TV show, but what I'm saying is like there are other better episodes of television that are able to consider these challenges of filmmaking and also still have it make sense. Like that's their job. I'm not going to be like,
it's not that it doesn't make
best
sense.
Episode of television.
It's that they cooked the chicken out off screen. Like
no, that isn't this. This is not an example of that plot hole. Okay, so for those who don't know, I have this analogy, which is when I complain about people complaining about plot holes. And my analogy is people are like, someone will have raw chicken, and then the next scene they'll be eating chicken, and they'll be like, that's a plot hole. Why didn't they get salmonella? And I'm like, well, they probably just cooked the chicken off screen, and like they don't want to waste a scene on that. There is no scene that you can add that makes Cersei deliberately luring Lancel down there to have a chance to stop her plan, and then have a child not try and kill her, have a child stab him once exactly in the way that makes him not bleed out, but his legs don't work, so he can slowly crawl towards it. And the child stands over him and it's like, I was deliberately not
like Lancel.
Question about that. Do we think though that the child missed? Because my thought was always that the child was intending to kill him and missed.
I think so too.
Yeah, I don't think it was meant to like paralyze him. I think it's a child that you're tasking with a murder, and it's a child, so there's bound to be inexperience.
It's funny because the reason I think it's stupid is I'm like, you're trusting this all to a child. Like, what if the child trips? And now you're like, yeah, the child failed and it almost didn't work, highlighting why this is incredibly stupid. But the child like stands over him after and is like, I guess could have in his head been like, no, I don't want to kill this person. It's fine. I crippled him. But like
he's gonna blow up anyway.
Yeah.
The kid has to get out of there. He doesn't want to blow up.
Yeah, the kid can't waste time.
He's in and out.
He's got to move.
Why is he here at all?
I will say, so if I have a large, like, overarching problem with the episode, it's how much it is trying to do something that it did very poorly, which is it's trying to pay homage to the books and, like, have fan callbacks and, like, adapt things and just doing all of that stuff worse than the rest of the episode.
Yeah.
And I feel like if they just didn't try to do most of that stuff and just wrote the scene, but without doing that thing, then those scenes would be better. And so this is one of the things where like, they were like, oh, well, we're going to do this crazy scene. But at the end of A Dance with Dragons, you know, Kevin and Pycelle get stabbed. And then they're like, well, nobody really knows who Kevin is in this show. So what if it's Kevin what if it's Pycelle and Lancel?
By the way, but they had to go with this. I have apparently, in thinking here for 5 minutes, have a solution to their problem, which is just like, don't have it set up so only 3 candles are going to blow it up. Just have candles everywhere, or have candles like up high that they can access from another spot, but that Lancel can't access even if he's not crippled. And so then it's like, you can be like, Cersei just wanted to be cruel and like twist the knife so Lancel could see what's going to happen, but wasn't like 4 seconds away from us getting the alternate version of this episode where Marjorie's like, we need to leave now. And then like nothing happens. And then they just go arrest Cersei.
I'm fine with this whole opening sequence. I'm with Kyle in the sense that in terms of build up, I think it's a 10 out of 10. Like this whole opening sequence for me is excellent. I love the facial acting from Lena Headey. Should have won her an award. It didn't, and that she was robbed of that. In this episode alone, she could have won like 17 awards for different moments with her face. And I love that whole opening. The scene with Lancel, like, yeah, whatever, it is what it is. But I'm kind of the opinion that the children are the little birds. They're the people that are behind the scenes this whole series. So I'm okay with seeing them in this way because I'm like, okay, we're getting a little more contextual background as to where Varys gets his secrets and how he can do things behind the scenes for the most part, whatever. And also, Lancel's the worst. So seeing Lancel get stabbed, I'm fine with it. So like 10 out of 10 for the opening.
So I consider this one of the better sequences of the episode.
Mm-hmm.
I would actually still give this sequence a pretty high score because like mainly because the score is so otherworldly good and like it's just the entire concept is very compelling of Cersei avoiding her.
Yeah,
is Cersei's going to avoid her plan just by like blowing
yeah,
them
the
up.
tension's really high.
Yeah.
Also, Natalie Dormer does really well in this
she does.
scene.
Yeah.
Jonathan Pryce does really well. I want to call out somebody who didn't like. He was fine. The guy who plays Mace Tyrell.
I love Mace Tyrell so much.
Kills me in this scene. Every time there's something going on, you just cut to his face and he's like,
yeah, exactly. Every single time, like, it's so good.
It's just like, dude.
My husband and I quote him regularly whenever something weird happens because it's the scene where he comes into the city with Jaime and he's talking to his troops and he's like, madness has had its day. And like, we love him. We think he's so great. So yeah, I love Mace Tyrell. I love the guy who played him. But the whole scene,
I don't know actors, but the actor who played the High Sparrow did a phenomenal job of not believing Marjorie and then like Jonathan slowly Price. Realizing she was telling the truth.
Yeah,
I'm going to just not even mention my nitpick that like Marjorie is right in her reasoning on why they should be worried, but what she says out loud is not the correct logic, and I'm just gonna like whatever. We'll just put that down to Marjorie was particularly stressed and got the logic wrong, and not that D&D can't do basic logic.
I feel like Marjorie
they can't do basic logic.
Yeah, book Marjorie and show Marjorie, two distinctly different characters, and I feel like show Marjorie really was amped up at being manipulative. But that doesn't make her necessarily overtly intelligent. Like the intelligent Tyrell is Olenna. So I feel like Olenna would be the one to articulate the correct things. Marjorie knows how to work a situation to get what she wants usually. But it's a bit.
I do think like the intention of that scene is look how smart Marjorie is. But I'm like, no, she said it wrong. I mean, her deduction like in her head
is correct. Yeah.
She just skipped a step. Like the step is like, okay, Cersei knows what the consequences is. And the step she skips is there's no way Cersei would be willing to suffer those consequences.
Correct.
So
she does say that though.
She says that Cersei's aware of the consequences.
She does not plan to suffer those consequences.
But she just skips a step, which whatever, I'm fine with. This is the nitpickiest of all nitpicks. So yeah, I'd give the opening section like an 8.5. Like, it's got a lot of stuff that annoys me.
I just want to say that if they had put Garland Tyrell in the show, this scene would not have happened because Cersei would have been like, I can't blow up Garland. He's too nice. So we would have all been fine.
Yeah, everyone would have been A-okay. Okay, so it blows up. That's fine. It's very clear from the window scene with Tommen. Tommen's going to walk through that window, and that's fine. Okay.
I actually was pretty shocked when it happened.
Really? I called it before. Like
I was wondering why they were lingering on the window, and then he just comes back in. I was like, "Holy crap!"
I said it to my husband immediately. The second that window was there, I was like, "Tommen's walking through that window." The second everything goes to hell, I was like, "It's 100% happening." But this for me is an issue in the show, not just this episode. So prophecy for me is one of the things that makes A Song of Ice and Fire so interesting. Because the way that Martin writes prophecies is excellent. And in this episode, there are two prophecies that are addressed, and neither one of them has a satisfying conclusion. So it drives me nuts. But in the book, we have Cersei's prophecy where we are told that she's going to have all three children predecease her and that she's then going to be killed by a younger brother. And the question was, okay, which brother is it going to be? Because Jaime's technically the younger twin, and then there's Tyrion, and there's that whole dynamic, whatever. So in the show, we sort of half got that prophecy in that the children were all going to die. And I was like, okay, fine. That then comes to fruition in this episode. And I'm like, all three children are gone. Cool. But the more interesting part of that prophecy was which brother is going to kill Cersei. Like that for me was so much more interesting, and it irked me that wasn't something that was then brought into the show and addressed, and it like resurfaces for me in this episode, and that's my really nitpicky
Did they
thing.
ever mention that?
No, and it's so annoying because it's so good.
I think the idea is for sure going to be that it's Jamie, because she doesn't even consider that it's Jamie. But I agree. Like,
the law of irony states it's Jamie.
Yes, it should be Jamie. Like 100% should be Jamie.
So
I'm
gonna stop and be complimentary for a second, because I think Tommen jumping out the window, like, one, it's an example of actions having like consequences that Cersei didn't even consider, that like, oh, we're killing a bunch of people that Tommen really cares about. And even though he's not given the responsibility to be king, he feels the responsibility of the king of the Seven Kingdoms as like, and he watches like all these innocent people blow up and can literally like hear their screams. And the no score just point at the window, and you can hear him go put the crown down, because he's like, I've failed as king, and then jumps out as the consequences to Cersei's action, as what she says is her main primary motivating goal, is brilliant. It's the best scene in any of the last 3 seasons by far, and it's really good.
I agree.
I like that scene. Not my favorite scene.
You're gonna hold that scene over Jamie knighting Brienne? Like, what is wrong with you?
That's a great scene too. But also,
I did forget that scene.
There is another scene in this episode that does it for me though, but we'll get there. So we kind of depart from that group and that scene, and we move on to the dinner that's being held by Walder
we did
Frey.
skip a thing here.
What did I skip?
We skipped a little scene. Yeah, which is confess. And then I wrote in the notes here, I wrote like, hey, did anyone watch Bookborn's violence against women video and mention how often writers rely on sexual violence against women as a trope to make the world feel gritty and make you hate people? Hey, is there a worse example than just being like, here's Sir Gregor, let's have zombie Gregor rape Septa Mordane? Like, what is the point of that?
Yeah.
Does anyone have...
Wait. Did I just zone out during that every time I watch this? What do you mean rape?
Well, I mean,
never knew
it's implied.
Was rape.
It's implied, but I mean, he stands over menacingly and she starts like screaming. So, okay, maybe he's going to hit her. Anyway.
I actually just like, I literally never went there. You could be right. I always just assumed he was going to torture her.
Which
is not good, but like, I just.
No.
Anyway.
I was in
Gregor's
that camp
dead.
too,
like, why would that be the thing he does? I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know. I thought it was supposed to be implied in the scene. Either way, I find that section really annoying, other than the fact that like they actually like waterboarded that lady with wine, which is like really bad.
Him calling her that lady.
Sorry, I don't know the actor's name.
I know, but that makes me realize you need to watch Ted Lasso, my friend.
You sure do. Yeah.
I don't remember actor names. I remember
like 4 actors. And she's excellent. She's so good in everything that she does. But you could definitely be right, Jake. I was more in it was a torture thing, but also like the screams to me was just meant to imply of how deformed and zombie-like he looked.
Yeah, me too.
She had never looked upon someone like that. So that was my interpretation of it. But I think that your interpretation is entirely valid, because based on the history of the show, definitely could be that.
Anyway, it's stupid. Moving on to, I have another compliment here. Ready?
Okay.
I have a compliment for Random Extra, who is the person who's actually Arya. And that's that, like, when Jamie is like kind of hitting on, like, she actually like matched Maisie Williams' facial expression.
I made the same note. I was like, when you rewatch this, she did such a good job at giving that side eye that Arya does. Like
the film guy in me has to say she's not an extra; she has lines. So she does. She's an actress. Like that's demeaning to her.
I'd like to apologize to that actress who did
she was in
Bridgerton
job. Season 1. That's really all I know her from. Bridgerton season 1 and this episode of Game of Thrones.
She did a good job. I totally agree. Yeah.
Yeah, also, she was very, very good.
They don't do the Robert Strong thing in the show, so I'm not calling him Robert Strong, because they just have him call him Sir Gregor.
She literally says the mountain in this episode.
Yeah, she does.
Even though like he got sentenced to death and it's supposed to be dead. But
no Balon Swan to take his head to Dorne, you know?
Yeah.
True.
Very disappointing.
So the conversation between Bronn, Jamie, and Walder, I think is fine. It's fine. Like, it's filler at this point.
I don't agree at all. This is one of my favorite scenes.
Is it really? Like, I like how Jamie calls him out and so forth, but like the then following scene between Jamie and Bronn for me is less important. Like, I like
that happened first.
Yeah, the Bronn and Jamie
Ron goes off. Yeah, that's just random. You know, they need to
Yeah.
talk about
That's
women.
D&D clever dialogue.
Exactly,
Yeah,
which
for
it's
sure.
not. But then
Yeah.
the scene with him and Walder
Yeah,
is
it's good.
much better. So yeah.
So the reason I like that is that Walder Frey is so unapologetically like disgusting and gross, and that really juxtapositions with Jamie. And like, so in a show where they didn't ruin Jamie's arc, this would have been a very, very important moment for him.
Yes.
But they just like they didn't follow through at all. But in the context of this scene, they are both Kingslayers. They are both reviled by the public for things that they have done, but they have very different reasons for doing what they did, and they have very different reactions to how they feel about what they did and the public's perception. Walder is just like, whatever, we are what we are, like they fear us, blah 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 blah. And Jamie is like, no, like they don't understand what I did for them, and like he's just so annoyed when everybody calls him Kingslayer.
Yeah.
And Walder is very blatantly like putting them on the same level of like grossness, but like as if they're proud of it.
Mm-hmm.
And that is what Jamie does not react poorly to all the other negative things that Walder says in the episode. He just like scoffs and moves on. But the reason he finally gets mad at him is because of that comparison. He's chafing at that idea that, oh, I'm like you, I am not like you, I am better than you. And so if the show like knew how to do character arcs, the season 7 and 8 stuff would be further on him realizing that he's not like what his sister and father are, and like you know, more of a furthering of his arc. But instead it's all meaningless because, you know, he goes back to Cersei. But I do really like how that scene is doing a lot of character work for Jamie, and I feel like people tend to focus on the fact that he just calls out Walder, but I'm like, the emotions behind why he calls out Walder are very, very good.
Well, the thing that's so interesting too, right, is that the thing that Jamie was trying to save the people from is what Cersei does at the beginning of this episode. Mm-hmm. So it's come full circle in that whole way too. But yeah, like if Kyle and I have discussed this, Jamie is my favorite book character. He's also Kyle's favorite book and yours. So like, Jamie's such a great character. So yeah, the conversation between him and Walder is very nuanced. And like Kyle said, had they actually done Jamie's arc correctly, it would have been a pivotal moment for his character. But I think it's one of those things too, that looking back on it, because they don't do it, I'm like, it's not as important as it could have been. And that's really frustrating.
So by the way, if we're doing this and we're giving this flack for like later episodes not following it up, I just like to remind everyone that no one ever really cares that Cersei blew up the Sept of Baelor and like brings it up. Like, you're not trustworthy. I'm a bank. Last time you had a trial, you literally blew up the Sept. Whatever.
Literally never brings it up. I just can't believe that shit.
But anyway, I actually don't attribute that to this episode. No, and I think this conversation's good. And that's future season's fault, and it's really dumb, but whatever.
Agreed.
I like this scene. It's unobjectionable, except for like the conversation with Bronn, where I just like, oh, okay, D&D dialogue. But
yeah,
okay. they just really like that kind of humor.
So a very complimentary thing for me in this episode is all the stuff in Old Town. Sam and Gilly arriving to Old Town. Sam seeing Old Town for the first time in the Tower of the Citadel. This for me makes my heart so happy because I love a library. I love architecture. So like, I'm that kid. Like, I am Sam in this moment when he walks into the Citadel for the first time and is like taking everything. And I was like, I see myself in this character. I relate to this character so much. And I love the dynamic with the maester at the desk, who is such a jackass. Yeah, he's such a jackass. But like, if you've ever had a crotchety professor in academia, you're like, I know this person. Like, you just immediately know this person. So I found that this whole thing for me worked very strongly in this episode and helped make it a strong episode for me. The whole stuff with Sam, I loved it.
Yeah, so this was a scene where I only have like a couple of things, which is like, it's wild that Sam's dad didn't go after the sword. Like, he was just like, oh, I guess the sword's gone. Who could have possibly taken it? It's not like that's our family's most valuable possession that we've had for hundreds of years.
It's actually never addressed again at all.
Yeah.
Whatsoever in the show.
They're like, oh, I guess Sam.
What even happens to it? Does anybody remember what happens to it?
I don't know if Sam even does anything with it.
I mean, does he fight with it at the Battle of Winterfell? Like, I don't even recall if he does. Maybe.
And
maybe that's why he didn't die.
Also, so I found it kind of...
Oh, hold on. Sorry. Hot news. My husband just walked by. Sam gives the sword to Jorah apparently.
Okay.
So I don't remember
okay.
that happening, but yes, that does happen.
And I'm sure House Tarly's totally okay with that.
Yes.
I guess they've been burned alive at that point.
Maybe
Whatever.
Around the time.
around there, yeah.
Who
So
cares? And then also, I actually enjoy the joke where they're like, "We think Jeor Mormont's the Lord Commander," but it does like for some of the things in season 6 to work, you have to accept that months are happening off screen.
Yeah, I agree.
And
I
that
thought the
kind
same
of
thing.
ruins that. So
Yeah.
later, when I'm like, this could kind of make sense, like if actually like months have happened off screen, in which case it's communicating that badly. But then it's like, really? So for the time scale to work for the rest of season 6, it has to have been like almost a year, like in season
Yes.
6, which also it's like of course the meme that like Gilly's baby's still a baby. But
yeah.
whatever.
So the
I only have
time,
nitpicks. I like this scene. I think the library is really cool.
yeah. The timing issues, though, definitely begin in this episode. Like, I was noticing that too, because that's a major thing that then becomes a
Yeah,
significant.
it happened in season
plot hole.
3 that he died. Like, there's
Yeah.
no way they
Yeah.
wouldn't know by now.
But also, that's not the only pacing issue in this episode. Varys is another plot point
Yeah,
issue for
Varys
that later in the
literally-
episode. So
Varys just like time travels.
Time
Like,
travel.
I have a
all
note
over the
here where
place.
I'm trying to like figure out the best thing for the timescale, and
yeah,
I think it makes more sense if actually a long time is happening, like long enough for Varys to get back. And I'm like, okay. Also, they had to gather all the Lords of the North, and that would have taken a long time. Like the
Yes.
people who weren't there. But then I'm also like, also that means Cersei's just crowning herself now, and even though it's been months, no one is having like any problems with Cersei crowning it. Like Cersei crowning herself makes a lot more sense if it was like a flash, like 2-day thing, and no one even had any time to mess with it.
That, though, like I get what you're saying with the Cersei crowning herself thing, but I also wonder who at that point is going to challenge Cersei.
So the problem is almost everyone has a better claim than Cersei.
Yeah.
Like, so I don't actually like, they would be unnamed characters, which this is again a theme of this episode where D&D just can't accept the fact that people who we don't specifically know would be relevant based on what happened.
That's their whole problem with the second half of the series.
Yeah.
Like, I just
which I also, when people like really like this episode and then complain about it later, I'm like, this is where this kind of like was really getting bad.
Yeah.
Which is that like there should be like 20 people who are like, I have a better claim than Cersei. Everyone hates Cersei. Her army's depleted, and she's like the wife of 2 kings ago.
Yeah.
Like
even when they did like at the very beginning of House of the Dragon, when they did the Great Council, there was something well, I just mean like that council in the book.
Yeah.
They had like something like 23 people
candidates, yeah,
and like some of them were like dismissed. They're like, no, you're like the great grandniece of 7 kings ago or whatever. But like they still had people that were like, hey, actually I have a claim, and all of those people inherently had a better claim than Cersei.
Well, that
they're
also
not
makes
characters.
No,
this is going to come up again in Dorne and The Reach, by the way, in about 10 minutes.
Yeah, so the whole concept too, in terms of challenging, is interesting when we compare it to the Great Council, because in the book Fire and Blood, Rhaenys isn't even allowed to be considered at the end. It's Laenor, because Rhaenys is a woman, and that's kind of the whole point of the thing. So it's interesting now, like you guys are saying, no one's really contesting her, and the fact that it's a woman, like that's a really big thing. And
but also, it's not a Baratheon. Like,
no.
Literally everyone with any blood relation to House Baratheon has a better claim than Cersei. And also probably any Lannister that's not a woman has a better claim. And like also Marjorie was queen, so any Tyrells can probably come in, and I mean that's not a claim, but it's the same claim Cersei has. So it's not so much that like it just doesn't work if it takes place over a long period of time. I can accept it if it was like an overnight thing that then got contested later. I'm assuming something with children or things going on, and I'll just continue to talk. But yeah, the time is really weird. Moving back, the transition where Sam sees the white ravens. Aren't they just doves in the books for winter? Whatever.
No, they're white ravens.
White ravens. All right, white ravens leaving Old Town, and then the transition when you get up to the north following the white raven is a really, really good transition. And
I love that scene. I love the white raven. That whole dynamic I thought was
also
really, really good.
there was a line that happened in the Walder Frey scene that I really, really, really hated, and it's going through my overall theme of how they just say things to reference the books and it doesn't make any sense. And it's when Walder Frey is doing his toast and he's like, our alliance's catchphrase, the Lannisters and the phrase "send their regards." I'm like, this is literally one of the worst lines in the entire show, and like, I just hate it so much. It doesn't make any sense. It doesn't know. Like, why would Walder know that phrase? Why would he think that's now their catchphrase? That is only something you would say if you're like, the fans really like this line. Yeah. And I just hated it. And they do it later on, just so I don't have to bring it up again, when Lyanna Mormont, in her terrible, terrible scene, where she's shaming all of the other Lords of the North.
Poor House Kerwin.
She's just like, the North remembers. And I'm like, but why would you say that? You're talking to the North and they're not remembering. You're only saying that because you're like, the fans like this line.
And I mean, part of the thing I have with this episode is that D&D does not understand that the characters are not us. Like, this is going to come up later when Daenerys decides Tyrion's incredibly trustworthy. Because, of course, we like Tyrion, right? Or when they make Jon king, because we like Jon.
But I actually think they would make Jon king.
So I'm okay with some of the northern people declaring Jon king.
We're jumping ahead, guys. We're jumping ahead.
The thing, this is to prelude. The thing that drives me insane, I think it's actually one of the stupidest things the show does, is all the Vale Lords excitedly stand up and go king in the north. Yeah. And I think that's literally like, there are few things in season 8 stupider than that thing in this episode. Apparently one of the best episodes in television history.
Okay, we'll get there. We will get there.
We will get there.
We need to talk first and
foremost. Sorry. Yes, I'm not. No.
The thing is, I'm only here till noon. We won't get there. It's one of the last scenes.
All I wanted to say is that on rewatch, because we didn't actually go over my actual thoughts on the episode, I liked it a lot less on rewatch.
Okay.
But I still like it.
Still like it.
Top what episode of Game of Thrones?
Ooh.
I don't know, 15, 20.
Acceptable.
Okay. The scene with Jon, Davos, and Melisandre, when Davos walks in, he tosses the burnt stag over to Melisandre. This scene for me is fine. But the thing that's interesting about this conversation is Faith, which I thought was a good, interlude for the episode, because of the fact that if you are a book reader, it's like the prophecy stuff, the religion that Martin writes into the books are so interesting. And I like it from that perspective, where we're questioning morality, questioning faith, questioning religion and our actions because of that. That's all I really have for that scene. But I didn't mind it.
I kind of like that scene. I'm nitpicking more here, but this is, again, D&D want Jon to be wise. So they're like, have him be wise in his sentence to Melisandre. Of course, the problem is that the sentence actually doesn't make sense. The conundrum is she is a murderer and should be hanged for murder. But on the other hand, she's like, but I'll be really useful in the coming war. So Jon's solution is go south and I never want to see you again, which actually manages to solve neither problem. But I actually really like Davos confronting Melisandre.
I agree.
And I really like Melisandre being challenged on the Lord of Light, where Davos is like, if your Lord commands you to burn children, your Lord is evil. So whatever. I think it's one of the better scenes in the episode.
I like that scene.
I do like just as a through line of this episode that I hadn't really picked up on the first time, is how much of this episode is people leaving people behind, either physically or metaphorically.
Yeah.
In order to do the last, to get to the last stages. Obviously Cersei blew people up, so that eliminated a lot of plot lines. But in terms of just we need to go do X and you don't have a place in X, so you're gonna do Y. That's the thing that happens a lot in the episode, where they leave, they tell Melisandre to leave. Dario Naharis gets
statesman.
He just
Dario Naharis, statesman. Yeah.
He has no purple beard. They can make it work. And then there's a couple more I'm blanking on right now. But I remember just the whole episode being that's very much a through line of preparing for the final thing by leaving people behind.
So one of the things that I really loved about this episode is the scene between Sansa and Jon, and them kind of having that conversation of who should take the bedroom, the chamber for the Lady or Lord of Winterfell. And then that kind of escalates into a conversation about Littlefinger. And then it culminates with Sansa telling, I'm angelic right now with the light coming in. Apparently this scene is really good. So the gods are shining down upon me. But with Sansa saying to Jon, a white raven arrived and winter is here. I like this scene a lot. And Jon's throwaway line of, well, father always promised. I liked that. Thought it was good.
I like this scene.
Okay, my main thing is actually more of a Battle of the Bastards issue, which is just that like they try and have Sansa be like, "I'm sorry, I didn't tell you about the army," and they don't even pretend to come up with an at all reasonable reason. She's like, "I guess I didn't trust you," and it's like, I don't know how that. All right, sure, whatever.
It is interesting. It's way harder to be praising an episode in isolation because of all the stupid decisions they're making around it. Like I'm like, oh, they ruined this later, and before this wasn't addressed, and
100%.
Thing is, so basically, but in fairness, I'm not giving this episode shit for things that later episodes ruin. So I'm going to. This was the episode that had a chance to come up with a reason for Sansa to not tell Jon.
Yeah,
so I'm blaming this for it. Get wrecked episode. If I can't blame you for this, then I've got a whole other list of things that you are the prelude to the screw up.
Fair.
So take it one way or the other.
Okay, so the next two big things are we have the beginning of the time traveling with Varys, and we see that Lady Olenna is in Dorne. So it's reasonable in my mind that Lady Olenna could have gone to Dorne because she's kind of been gone for a while. So that's fine. Varys now being able to teleport to different places is highly problematic.
So when was the last time we saw Varys? We didn't see him in episode 9.
I feel like it wasn't that long ago.
So I'm actually, as the hater, I'm okay with Varys being in Dorne and Olenna being in Dorne.
Yes, but it's then them being back.
It's them getting back.
It's at the end of the episode with Varys being on the ship. Again,
that's
at
crazy.
This moment, I'm okay with it. It's in the context of knowing at the end of the episode that he's back with Daenerys.
I agree.
Not okay with.
I think I put a note here and I just wrote, note, Varys is in Dorne. I'm sure this won't be important later. They
could have really used that note.
Yeah, exactly.
But yeah, I'm also like timing wise, because also like all the lords that weren't involved in the battle in the north are in Winterfell now, and the north is huge. So presumably quite a bit of time has happened, and Gilly's baby's just a late bloomer. Still looks quite young for the young age of 3 or 4 years old, but my issue is this is similar to they just forget that there aren't people who aren't named characters, which is that Oberyn's girlfriend being the lady of Dorne is completely stupid.
Everything with Dorne is abysmally terrible.
And get this. This is something season 8 does better. How often do you hear that? Because in season 8, there's like just some Dornish dude is the Lord, which is what it should be. Like it should be some apparently like Doran Martell only had one soldier who was at all loyal to him. So once the Sand Snakes killed them, all the Dornish soldiers were like, "Oh, you're the Lord's younger brother's girlfriend? Yeah, we'll do what you say for sure."
It was so unfortunate in the show that we didn't get Arianne because she's such a great book character that I feel like that would have been.
Yeah, it really suffered from them trying to merge those two characters together, which is like on every facet a bad decision. It's like, why don't we just merge Tyrion Lannister and Benjen Stark together? Like those they just don't. It just because they're in the same location for one moment doesn't mean.
Yeah.
And it just does not work on any level. And then the other thing is they cast. So I don't defend this decision, but I understand the logic, which is that they cast a really good and well-known British actress to play her because they wanted a dramatic actress when they were building up Oberyn, because the guy playing Oberyn was less well known. Obviously, he's Pedro Pascal now, but at the time, nobody knew who the hell he was.
No one knew who he was.
So it was to add a little bit more gravitas to that, and then the response to that is they need to give her more time because people know her better, and they just chose poorly, and I just hate it so much.
And also, 100%. This is more forgivable because Olenna's great, but how is Olenna the Lady of the Reach now? Like, there's no other cousins related to House Tyrell. Maybe a brother. Who knows? Who just we've never seen. This was their time to bring in Carlin Tyrell and be like,
I think that's kind of the point, right? Is that when in the next season Jaime gives her the poison, House Tyrell is gone. Like she's the last one. That's kind of my understanding. Is like that's kind of what's starting to happen in this episode. Is we are now starting to fully eliminate houses. So we've got that with. Basically starting now with House Tyrell, and then next season we've got it with like a whole bunch of them.
We also eliminate the Freys this episode.
Hey, have you ever heard like the stat of how many people have some blood relation with like William the Conqueror?
Right, I'm one of them.
Yeah, this house has been around for like hundreds of years, and they've been marrying other noble houses. Someone out there with an army is like, hey,
Oh,
shit,
yeah.
I have Tyrell blood. I have a way better claim than Lady Olenna. She's like the wife of 2 lords ago or something.
But this is all kind of, I think,
and she's in Dorne.
It's interesting because we've got these discrepancies now between House of the Dragon and Game of Thrones with how they treat women in positions of authority. So that's kind of interesting, even though I understand there's like almost a 180-year gap between the two. I'm like, things don't change that much, but it is what it is. But one of the things I do want to talk about before Jake leaves us is the scene with Dario and Dany, because I disagree with Jake in that this whole episode, in terms of its cinematography, is done really well, because this scene is horrendous.
Sure.
Whoever edited this scene like only wanted close-ups and weird angles on faces, and I'm like, this is not good.
They just passed the camera to their kids for one scene.
Basically. I'm like, every time my husband and I watch this scene, because we've rewatched this episode probably like 5 or 6 times, and each time we watch it, subsequently, I feel worse and worse about this scene. I'm like, it's just not good. But the thing for me that sticks out more now than anything else, if Kristen Cole could have been like Dario Naharis, like, so many problems in House of the Dragon would have been resolved. Like, that's all I gotta say on that. But what do you guys think of this scene with Dario and Dany?
I mean, it's more of the same thing where they're just pretending that only named characters exist.
Yeah, I was just gonna say, this is where it bothers
Dario
me.
is a completely absurd pick to rule Meereen. Like, it is, I think, not plausible that there isn't 15 better choices than Dario Naharis.
Literally, just a random soldier on her side that is Meereenese would be better.
By the way, if they did end up like, I just like to note that if Daenerys ended up being queen and marrying Dario, and then in 50 years all her kids died and Daenerys died, Dario becoming king of the 7 kingdoms is the equivalent of what's happening in Dorne and the Reach right now. I just like to note that. But yeah, there are 15 people who are better choice than Dario. Like,
yeah.
I don't know. Like, also, she's doing it because Tyrion is like a trustworthy counselor. Obviously, Tyrion doesn't do anything smart in the last 3 seasons, but like, Daenerys has 0 reason to trust Tyrion. Her only reason to trust Tyrion is that we trust Tyrion.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Well, also, so I kind of disagree on that one note, because of the fact that Dany is really sheltered. Like, I think we forget that a lot of the time. She's learned the history of the 7 kingdoms, but she hasn't actually ever really lived there or experienced them. This is her first person, really, that's coming from that world into her sphere.
Barristan Selmy Erasure?
Well, no, because I feel like that's different. It's different when you're a Knight of the Kingsguard versus when you're just a member of a noble family. I feel like there's a difference in that, where it's like someone that's playing this game versus someone that's a protector. I just don't view them the same way.
I would say the main reason is that she actually has a reason to trust Barristan, being that he's a Kingsguard. True. And Tyrion, it's just like, I don't know if you all remember Viserys. He was a character.
Her brother.
He is like her only source. Her and Jorah Mormont are the only source on the Lannisters. So everything she would have been told about the Lannisters for an entire life would be like, these people suck. And then Tyrion shows up, and like, she's just like, yeah, you're gonna be the Hand. And it's like, okay, so obviously, like, we want Tyrion to be the Hand because when Tyrion was the Hand in Clash of Kings, that's like the best Tyrion stuff.
Yeah, that's exactly what I was thinking.
That's why he's the Hand. Like,
it's peak Tyrion. Yeah. I think, well, that's the thing too. Like, book Tyrion ends up becoming absolutely terrible, and people kind of forget that a little bit. And show Tyrion was just good the whole time. So.
Yeah, book Tyrion at this point would also not be a good pick for Hand. Anyway, this is just more them. They want Tyrion to be the Hand, so we're just gonna not worry about it.
Yep. Okay, so we kind of leave that side of the world, and we come back and we see one of my favorite scenes in the whole series, and that is the Arya reveal to Walder Frey.
Oh, wow. You and Jake are going to have some problems here.
I love this scene. I love it, Jake. I'll fight you on it. I don't care. I love it so much. Why don't you like this scene?
So I don't hate this scene, but so this is, again, exactly like, they obviously wanted Arya to kill House Frey, and they wanted him to have a pie with like his own kid in it.
Because the fans like the pie.
Yes, because the fans like the pie. Okay, I want you to now actually. So I remember earlier in the show when like things that would be practically really difficult were shown as difficult. So I now want you to imagine, all right, Arya's in Bravos and has been stabbed. And so now we're going to ignore that she's been stabbed. She is a healing factor. She's Wolverine. We're just going to push that aside.
Yeah.
So she's going to sail to the Twins. Not a port. So she's going to arrive.
She presumably sailed to like Salt Pans or something.
Yeah, so Salt Pans. So one thing that's kind of weird, I looked at the map for this because I was like, wait, isn't this weird? And when you look at the map, like, just no matter where she sails, it's kind of weird. So her three main options to land is Salt Pans. And I think the issue I have with Salt Pans is it's just closer to Winterfell it's closer to King's Landing. And then like you take the King's Road, like there's no good roads there, but whatever. Yeah. Or she could arrive in White Harbor, which is closer to Winterfell. So it's kind of weird to like land in White Harbor and then go to the Twins and then go back to Winterfell. Or she'd land in King's Landing, where obviously she'd kill Cersei. But whatever. Let's just say she landed in Salt Pans and then just bushed it and like traveled from Salt Pans to the Twins and didn't go to King's Landing or Winterfell, which both seem like they would be more priorities to me, but that's okay. She then, and I know it's satisfying, but like, I would just like to note how completely ridiculous it is that she managed to bake that pie. Like with a person in them. Like do you know how many people probably work in that kitchen? Like that's probably a pretty big kitchen. And she managed to murder multiple people who were the sons of the Lord and then butcher them, which she says was difficult. She specifically says was difficult, and then bake them into a pie. And it's like, I guess then she made pie crust, which she knows how to do. She could have got someone else to make the pie crust. But whatever. It's satisfying. Yeah. She kills Walder Frey. We're not worried. Like, that's the scene they wanted. We're not worried about whether it makes sense. That's this entire episode. I don't dislike this more than any of the other 17 times I've brought this up, but it's still completely stupid. And like, this is just, I'm willing to accept some things off screen. This is the cooked chicken thing. I'm not willing to accept murdered two people and bake them into a pie in the middle of a busy kitchen. And then manage to get Walder Frey with no guards. Because how often do you see lords have dinner with no guards all the time?
That was actually my big problem with it. I was like, why are there no guards around Walder Frey? Like, not even in terms of like assassination worries. The man is 90 something. I mean, in the books he's older, but he's like 90 something. Yeah. So like he's gonna fall. He needs attendance. Like, I just don't understand why there's nobody around.
I feel like it's a cockiness thing with him, though, that he feels like he might not need.
You know what?
Guards.
I have a theory. I will try and steel man the show. I have a theory, which is that Walder Frey told the guards that he's going to try and like hit on this like servant.
There you go.
And he's like, go away. I want to try and like hit on the servant.
This actress.
Someone might say. Because I need to have another 7 children. All right. So we'll give it that. But still, the scene makes no sense.
Yeah, I agree. I think that's probably what it was. It was trying to him like.
Well, actually, probably what it was is D&D were like, well, we want Arya to kill Walder Frey.
There are no characters.
But I will try and come up with a plausible explanation, which I can.
Yes. So,
and I'd like to note that I'm trying for everything to come up with plausible explanations, and I'd now like you to note all the things where I can't come up with a plausible explanation, and I'm trying pretty hard here.
Yeah, I hear you. There's some things, and this was kind of what I was saying with Kyle in terms of Battle of the Bastards. Some of it just doesn't make sense, but it's so gratifying that I'm like, I'm fine with it. I'm fine.
It's okay. They're only top 50 episodes, so the bar's not that high.
I don't feel that way about Battle of the Bastards at all.
I know you don't, but I do.
But as I said in that chat, I do feel that way about this one. So it's like, I get why you feel that way.
I feel kind of similarly about both. I don't know which one I am more annoyed with.
I know, but here's the thing.
Yeah.
I agree Arya doing that with the pies is like practically impossible, but man, was it satisfying. And just,
it's so good.
Just the idea that I had already accepted, like, you have to understand, we all had emotions coming into this, right? I had already accepted we were never getting Frey pies, which, by the way, we got Wyman Manderley in this episode, and he sucks. Like, he's just random. He's just random northern guy. So they denied me Wyman Manderley. They denied me the actual scene the North remembers. And so I just thought I was never getting Frey pies. And lo and motherfucking behold, I got Frey pies. So at that point, I'm not thinking about the logic of it. I'm just saying, like, they gave me Frey pies. And that's all I cared about.
Okay. I hear you.
That's okay.
So we have that scene, and that's kind of the end of Walder, but the end of the rest of the phrase comes with the opening of season 7, which is another scene that I actually really enjoy, but that's for another day. But we then have this scene with Peter Baelish being a super creep in the Godswoods, and this is just a personal gripe that I have, that Peter Baelish becomes progressively more and more Irish, with each season of this show. He starts in season 1 as a Brit and basically ends the series as Peter Baelish. So it drives me nuts every time he talks. I'm like, pick an accent, pick a lane.
I totally agree. And they also do that with like people's hair. Like, do you guys remember when Jamie was blonde?
Like,
yeah, and
that's
Tyrion,
kind of a thing. Yeah,
Tyrion was like bleached blonde.
I know, yeah.
Drives me nuts. Absolutely nuts.
So I have a theory that you can perfectly predict how good a season of Game of Thrones is based on how intelligent Littlefinger is in that season of Game of Thrones. Yes, he is dead in season 8.
So he's not very intelligent.
Yes. So yeah, like that's literally like, because it's D&D have to start writing him and they get dumber. And it's like he just gets progressively dumber. He's like, everything I do is to have us on the Iron Throne, including selling you to Ramsay and all the scheming I did before I met you.
So dumb.
Whatever.
So dumb.
It makes no sense.
Yeah, it's ridiculous. The scene with Littlefinger drives me nuts. Basically anything with Littlefinger post the purple wedding is bad, in my opinion. Like, none of the decisions he makes are really intelligent. So yeah, I don't love that. But we see Benjen in this scene, or in this episode, very briefly, with Bran, and it's not the last time we're going to see Benjen, because that's going to come in a really dumb episode in season 7. And it's fine. Like, I don't love it.
That's fine. Oh, that was the other thing. They were leaving Benjen behind. I knew there was another scene.
That's actually the only scene I don't have any notes for. So
okay,
that's how fine it was.
Yeah, it was fine. It's fine. And okay, so the Tower of Joy scene. I love the Tower of Joy plot in the book.
Same.
So to go back a little bit, when the first Tower of Joy scene happened earlier in season 6, when I was watching it live for the first time, my internet went out and I lost the episode and started having a meltdown when I was watching it live, because I was like, what's happening? And like, didn't know. And then when we finally cut back to it in this episode, I was like, excellent. The thing, again, in terms of talking about prophecies, that is enraging to me, is that this scene builds everything up for Jon to be Azor Ahai, and nothing comes of it. Nothing. And I was like, when I saw it the first time, it seems like Bran can change the past, because in the earlier episode when he says father, and now in this scene, Ned looks back now, and I'm like, okay, that's interesting. And then we have the salt tear, we have the star with his sword, like all of these signs for Azor Ahai. I'm like frothing when I see this scene for the first time. Now I'm like, it's just disappointment. I still love this scene.
I'm just like ultimately glad they gave me Promise Me Ned. Like, again, like it just, I can't divorce myself from watching it the first time and just how like we didn't get Promise Me Ned. Like, I've been wanting to see this, and like how important this is for the whole series.
Mm-hmm.
So like, I was just so happy to get it that like, I'm just like, yeah, whatever. So,
and I thought young Ned's actor, sorry, don't know his name, did a really good job of showing like the gravitas of him realizing like,
it's Elrond.
I'm gonna have to do this, and I'm gonna have to.
It's Elrond from Rings of Power.
I only watched 1.25 episode of Rings of Power, so
when they were talking about what kind of spin-offs they were going to do, I was hoping one of them would possibly be Robert's Rebellion. And I was like, if they do it, they need to cast this guy again as young Ned, because he's perfect. He does such a good job as a young Sean Bean.
And again, speaking of later things, I would just like to remind you all that Bran can possess people back in time. Back later when they're like, how are we ever going to deal with Cersei? Just saying.
Yeah. Kyle and I talked about this too briefly with Battle of Bastards, with Bran.
Yeah. But that's season 8's fault. That's not this season's fault.
No.
So I like this scene.
It's fine. Yes. Yeah. So that then rolls into the King of the North scene, which has Lyanna giving her little proclamation speech, which is supposed to be like her girl power moment, which is...
I wrote down that this is when people tweet like, my kid said this and everyone clapped, but it's actually a season of allegedly one of the best episodes in television history.
Yeah. So, I mean, it's fine. this scene, it's a callback, right, to Rob being hailed King of the North in season 2 or whatever it is.
And
I believe
like
it's season
2, so we'll like this.
I hated season 2. Season 2 to me is one of the weaker seasons of the show, other than like a couple of episodes, specifically Blackwater.
Both being irrelevant right now. He gets crowned King of the North in season 1.
Is it season 1?
Yeah.
I know it's book 1. I forgot if it was season 1 or
it's season 1,
yeah.
and the reason I will always remember that is they had a random extra that has him say Renly is not right, and I think about that more than you can know.
Yeah, that was the season finale of season 1. That was Fire and Blood, right? An episode that, by the way, is vastly superior to this one.
So that's my husband's favorite episode out of every single episode.
It's also a very good episode.
And your favorite episode is... So your husband's favorite episode is Fire and Blood, and he got you to read lines of our song? I like this guy.
Yeah, he's pretty great.
You picked well. Good choice.
Yeah, that's why I married him. But then that scene brings us into... we refer to them as the 3 coronations in my household, because we have Jon being proclaimed King of the North. You have Cersei then being crowned in King's Landing. And then we come to the best scene of the episode, in my opinion. But the scene with Cersei being crowned, I actually really like for a number of reasons. The score, I think, is once again excellent. Is great. It's very somber. It's how it should be. They've changed her look slightly for this, which she'll maintain for the rest of the show. It fits her. But the thing that I think is the best about this scene is Jaime's look and Cersei's look to each other.
It's amazing actor.
Yeah, it's great facial acting from the two of them. So I like this scene.
I have to very quickly defend the honor of House Kerwin, because House Kerwin is slandered. By Lyanna Mormont. Lyanna Mormont says that House Kerwin refused the call. If you go back 2 episodes, Sansa's like, we can still go talk to House Kerwin. And Jon's like, we fight with the army we have. We don't have time to talk to House Kerwin.
That's a really good call. That's funny. I didn't catch that, so that's a good call.
Did not refuse the call. And also, one of the people, I think it's Manderley, says Jon Snow avenged the Red Wedding. He literally
that doesn't make any sense to me.
I just wrote, he literally didn't. Like, not in any conceivable way. I guess he kind of killed Ramsay, but Ramsay didn't do the Red Wedding. And also, he was getting his ass kicked by Ramsay until the Vale showed up. And Roose or Jaime or Walder Frey did the Red Wedding, and he in no way killed any of those people.
Well, if you're considering it a blood feud, it would carry from Roose to Ramsay. So I can see it in that.
The dogs killed Ramsay, which, by the way, again, I would like to note from the dogs killing Ramsay that Sansa left that conversation before Ramsay said that the dogs hadn't eaten in days. And that callback made no sense. I know this.
My husband also loses his mind with that. He's like, she doesn't know that, and I'm like, well, whatever. It is what it is. But
but that's okay.
For me, the best scene of this episode is the final scene, and it's the ships. It's seeing Daenerys's fleet, like that for me.
I'm sorry.
Was so good. I love this scene because that. For me, and I said this to Kyle last time, I'm a basic bitch when I like certain things, and I love book Daenerys and I like book Jon, so I'm always interested in their plot lines, and it's the culmination of Daenerys' whole storyline in like one scene. And the first time I ever saw this, my husband, we were moving him from a new apartment to our house, and we had no longer had HD. So we only had like standard def when we watched this episode, and we're watching it and we're like, okay, why is this important? And then like when we watched it on high def, we realized that on all of the ships were the individual house sigils. And I was like, oh, it's because they're not all Targaryen. It's different groups of people. So I just love this scene. And also because there's 3 happy dragons in this scene, which makes my heart happy because I know that's not going to end where it ends.
So this scene, I'd like to note for how much I like the score. I have this Targaryen music when I write papers. This is my background music.
It's so good.
Anyway, so this scene is hype, hype, hype. Holy crap, Varys is there? What the hell is going on? His smug face ruins the damn scene.
Him out. Like,
if we get a new edition where Varys just isn't there, I like this scene then.
Does this scene work though if Varys isn't there and we have the ships from like the other groups of people?
Well, see, this is the entire thing. They want Varys to be there, and they're like, we want the scene with Varys to be here, so we're just not going to worry that it makes sense. So I wrote down, I was like, timeline-wise, I have a note here. Okay. Hey, what's up, Varys? Nice of you to teleport. Although, actually, on rewatch, in fairness, enough time has passed for all the Northern Lords to go to Winterfell and for Jaime to arrive in King's Landing, so clearly it takes place over months. Although, on the other hand, if it is months, it is then weird that Cersei is just crowning herself now, and no other lords with any connection to House Baratheon, or just ones who are rich, aren't contesting it. Also, it seems like Lord Walder doesn't recognize the girl Arya is pretending to be, even though she was there when Jaime was there. So again, if it's months, like, that's kind of weird. And then I wrote, maybe the stupidity warps the space-time continuum.
It's possible.
And also Gilly's baby's still a baby.
So how long do we know journey-wise between the twins and King's Landing? Kind of how long we're dealing with? Because like
on a horse, it would take a couple days probably.
Yeah, that's
like,
not
maybe
like
a week tops. Like,
so that context isn't unreasonable for the two of them, like Jaime getting back and Cersei crowning herself in a short period of time. Like that could reasonably.
Yeah, that's fine on its own. The problem is everything else has to be.
Yes, in addition to the other things. Yeah, it's problematic. But I still like, it's one of those things I was saying earlier, doesn't have to make sense, but I like that final scene. Like I agree, Varys being there is irksome, but just the grandness of the final scene, seeing the fleet like heading towards Westeros, Dany heading to Westeros.
I'm so happy we're leaving Meereen at that point.
Yes, because it's so done.
Emotionally, I've been in Meereen since 2011. So.
Yeah, exactly. You're just like, I don't want to be here.
I've been in Meereen since like
anymore.
2013 or 14 emotionally.
Yeah,
so
exactly. So that's the end of the episode, though.
We made it.
We didn't go back, by the way, to the Vale Lords declaring Jon king in the North.
We did not, no.
Which is, like, legitimately in contention for the stupidest thing in the entire history of the show. Like, literally all they know about him is, okay, he's related to Ned Stark, who they think is kind of cool. He's a bastard of Ned Stark, which some of them might care about, some of them might not. He's a deserter of the Night's Watch.
His watch is done.
What do you say?
His watch is done. It's over.
Yeah, so he says that because he died and came back.
Yeah, but
the Vale Lords do not know the loophole. And they're not like, well, actually, he came back to life. So they just know he's a deserter of the Night's Watch and should be like, why aren't you executing him?
So on note, though, do they not know that? Because Davos is like very free with his tongue when he goes down and
I just think people won't believe him.
Yeah,
probably.
Like, when people say like, oh, my lord died and come again, people are like, no, he didn't.
Yeah.
So that could have happened. I still don't think it's at all reasonable distinction. And they know he was getting his ass kicked in a battle before they saved him because they were following the person who should be the Lady of Winterfell, who is the last known trueborn child of Ned Stark, who was married to the previous Lord of Winterfell and whose army took Winterfell. This entire rest of this episode goes girl power when it doesn't need to. And then they have the actual girl power, but they don't have the balls to do it because they are like, but Jon Snow's cool. Sansa should be the Lady of Winterfell, even though she's an idiot who didn't tell Jon about the Vale army. I don't care. Jon is a usurper. And they should, all the Vale Lords should be like, why the hell? Like, no, we're following Sansa here.
A usurper?
Yes.
Oh my gosh, that's a great title.
That's the only scene where the girl power scene even made sense. The only time they had an actual opportunity to have like someone become the queen in the North and have it actually make sense. They skipped it. The cowards. I hate them. And this episode,
girl power scene
sucks.
That makes sense is Daenerys' fleet heading towards.
Okay, but they ruin it with Varys being there. Okay,
yeah.
Before that it made sense.
There.
Maybe it's just a bald man that looks kind of like Varys.
No. Shut up,
Varys is actually Arya, guys. It's actually Arya.
Every single episode
Let's make it
of
less
season
dumb.
2 is better than this episode.
Oh, that's not true.
So we've talked about these 2 episodes now. We've talked about these 2 episodes. So Kyle's favorite episode is probably Kiss by Fire, we think. There's also
Blackwater. Blackwater. There's like a tier of like 5 that are like my favorite, probably.
So I remember there was Blackwater. We talked about was it Watchers on the Wall? Is that the
which is
the
my
battle
favorite
episode at the wall?
Yeah, that's one of my favorites too. It's very
that's actually that might be my favorite episode of television.
Okay, so maybe
not
next
time,
but
I'll take it.
Maybe next time we discuss either like Blackwater, that one, or Watchers on the Wall.
If you want to give me an excuse to rewatch Watchers on the Wall, I might watch it anyways.
I haven't watched it in probably like 6 years, so it's been a while. So that one would be.
I don't have as many stupid nitpicks for that episode.
No, and that's the thing. I don't either.
That's because it's great.
Yeah.
Probably interesting going back and watching it now that I know the rest of the series. Just
also,
to see how I feel about it.
I'm often on team, like, I hear people being like, oh, it wasn't like that character driven of an episode or book because like it was a lot of action. And I'm on team action and character can be one and the same thing. And Watchers on the Wall is the best example of that. It is so chock full of character. It's so good. It's an unbelievable episode of television that would love to discuss it. Literally, all my notes will be positive compared
we'll
to
do that one next. So Watchers on the Wall will be the one that we do next. We're not going in any normal order that makes
Listen, I'm not watching season 7 again.
Yeah, actually, well, everything after this is there literally isn't a good episode. I mean, I don't even think this is
there is a good episode.
There is.
It's
season
episode 8,
episode 2.
Episode 2. Yeah.
Oh yeah, that's the one where like Tyrion's like, I think we might win. Maybe.
Kind of, yeah, but it's
the one where Jamie,
it's the Knighting of Brienne episode. It's a very conversation-based episode, and it's appropriate for a pre-war episode.
Yes, I love that episode. I really think it's good.
Yeah,
okay.
It's
well, I don't remember it that well, but you know what? We can do that after Watchers on the Wall.
Okay,
and I can
rewatch it. Skipping everywhere. I would.
We're like Varys, all over the place.
For maximum chaos, I think we should do one on the episode we all for sure hate, which is Beyond the Wall.
Oh, is that the one where the Night King?
Yes.
Oh my god, it's so bad.
It's so bad. I would be okay to do that, but I will say I still have a visceral reaction when Viserion dies. Like a visceral reaction. It's not great.
So for context, if I give this episode like a 6 out of 10. I'd give Watcher on the Wall a 10 out of 10. I'd give huge sections of the first 4 seasons like 8s and 9s and 10s out of 10.
Yeah.
I'd probably give that episode like a 2 or a 3. Like,
yeah, that episode's terrible.
It doesn't have redeeming qualities.
It does. The redeeming qualities are everything Tormund says to anybody.
Correct. Ding, ding, ding.
The first half of that episode is good. Like, I mean, the premise of the mission is ridiculous, but like just them like in the wild learning to like each other and like get on the same page. All of that is excellent. It goes off the walls when they get to the lake. The rest of that episode is absolutely ridiculous.
Also, they ruined whites and they made them just die to normal weapons.
Yeah.
Yes.
Whatever. They had so many things.
Yeah, there's a lot of issues in that episode, but I would be game to watch that one.
But there's a lot of issues in this episode.
If you haven't looked it up, you definitely should. Someone did a mocking opening of the A-Team show, but did it for that group of people that went above the wall, and it's hysterically funny. So highly recommend that people watch that just for comedy value. It's great. But any final thoughts on our Winds of Winter episode?
So, Kyle, you said it was like top 15-ish now. Where was it before you rewatched it?
I would have top 5 or 10 for sure.
Okay. Well, I'll take that as a minor victory. I'll wear you down eventually over the years.
Here's the thing. I agree with almost every single one of your criticisms. I just don't think they matter as much as you.
Exactly. That you don't care.
I understand. Like I've said in this episode and previously, I feel the exact way that you feel for Battle of the Bastards, which is that people being like, yeah, but it's cool. But I'm like, but it's stupid. So like, it's just what resonates with you. So
yeah,
exactly. And it's one of those things, you pick the things that you really care about, and then you're like, okay. And if that's not present for you in that episode, it's fine.
Yeah, Kyle's the halfway point. Kyle's like, he's got one where it's like, this is stupid. Why do people like it? But then, so before we talked about this a bunch, you said like you didn't get how people could like Battle of Bastards, and I'm like, you like Winds of Winter? What are you talking about? But this is why
I think it's terrible. That's why. Also,
it's
I was probably so. Here's the thing: on Discord, a lot of times I will just be saying a thing because it's like short and snappy, and it causes chaos. But like, I'm not actually giving my well thought out reason, nuanced takes. Like, at no point, like if I'm like, I don't know why anybody likes NCIS, but like actually, like I get it. Like you had a long day at work and you just want to put on something comforting and you like the characters and it's like I actually do get why somebody would like NCIS, but I'm just like, why would anybody watch crap? You know, like so.
Yeah. Well, I actually don't know. I should have rewatched Battle of the Bastards because I don't know which episode I'm more annoyed by.
You would. I'm almost positive.
I think I like Winds of Winter more.
Yeah,
I think it would be Battle of the Bastards that you dislike more. But
the tactics and stuff, and that would really drive you crazy.
Like, yeah, the thing is, like, tactics do annoy me, but they don't bring it down as much as Like, the biggest thing that annoys me about this is not the nitpicking, it's the entire philosophy of how they got to scenes. And just
I agree.
But I guess they do that kind of for the battle. But I think Winds of Winter has more distinctly good things about it. I actually think Jon being crowned by the Veil is dumber than anything that happens in Battle of the Bastards. It might literally be like, you got to get to season 8, I think, before. Actually, what is clearly dumber than that?
I think we're gonna go Beyond the Wall and capture White is dumber.
Yeah, it might be.
100%.
Like, it's a stupid plan that makes no sense because, one, why are they worried about Cersei? She's broke. And has like no army and is literally like, she's queen but has control of like one city. But oh no, they conquered the Reach in 5 minutes.
Yeah, that was really hard. Well, thank you guys for our conversation on the Winds of Winter. Jake, thanks for joining us.
I don't know. So
join us next time.
Thank you. I remember when season 7 hadn't come out, I was on this train then, and it was really hard to convince people. Now people are like, oh, I see where you're coming from. But at the time, like, some people in hindsight haven't liked this episode where they liked it when they watched it, and then like everything got fumbled, and they're now like, no, season 6 sucks as well. I didn't like this episode when it came out. I was arguing with people after this came out, and no one would be like, no, everyone thought I was crazy.
I was like, that episode's so good.
I still like it. Honestly, I still like it. And there's a few scenes throughout season 7 that I like as well.
I'd give it a positive score. 6 out of 10, which normally is like solid. But
listen, based on how I rate Wheel of Time episodes, 6 out of 10 is a very generous score. So I can understand where you're coming from. But once again, thank you, Jake. I think you said you needed to leave at like noon.
I do.
So
12:15, yeah. So I'm going
hold on.
Yes.
Hold on just a quick second here. I mean, Jake can leave if he has to leave. I'm going through my Facebook memories, trying to see if I can find my exact commentary
for Winds of Winter.
Yeah, I don't know what year it came out though. I might not be able to find it.
It came out in 2016.
I'm curious to see this.
It was August 2016, the finale.
Oh,
this is not in any sort of order.
It says original air date June 26th.
I am hating on an episode. Oh, this is season 5. Yeah, season 5 for sure made me angry.
Season 5 is bad too, so that's fair.
Except the stuff for the wall.
Yeah, and Hard Home. Hard Home is really good.
But just everything that takes place, if you go at the southmost point of Castle Black, everything north of that in season 5 is really good. Like, if you only showed someone that, they could be like, oh, this show's still like a 10.
Yeah.
But everything below it is questionable.
Agreed. I find a lot of season 2 questionable though, but that's me.
Man, I posted about Game of Thrones a lot on Facebook. Holy crap.
I'll tell you
get a life,
find
Kyle.
it, and we'll talk about it in our beginning next time.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right, everyone.
All right. Bye, everybody. Thanks for joining us.
If you're watching on the recap, let us know in the comments down below what you think of Winds of Winter. But we'll catch you next time.
I was slightly less positive than the last time I talked with Fantasy Awash.
It's fine. It's fine. And we'll all love Watchers on the Wall. So next time it'll be a bounce back. And then it'll be really good.
What if Fantasy Awash watches Watchers on the Wall and it's like, this episode's so mid. What are you talking about? It's the
Last time I watched it, I remember really liking it.
Yeah, it's really good. You're not going to think it's mid.
I don't think so. Yeah. Probably not. All right, everyone. Thank you. We'll catch you next time.
Goodbye.
Bye.
Thanks, Chad.